One thing you can reliably find in your local thrift store's toy section are Happy Meal toys from decades past. And who doesn't love Happy Meals, aside from people who value childhood nutrition? Today I'll be taking 3 cheesy toys that came from thrift stores and transforming them into something worthy of your tabletop. First up, we have Manny, the woolly mammoth from Ice Age, voiced by the very talented Ray Liotta.
My poop fertilizes the tundra, Deborah! Deborah!
And this is Red Death from How to Train Your Dragon Part 3. He's equal parts cute and weird looking, like Yolandi Visser. I'm going to do my best to steer him away from the cute and towards the weird. And this is Mulgarath from 2008's marginally successful young adult fantasy romp, The Spiderwick Chronicles. He's clearly some kind of ogre or troll, and no, I'm not going to look it up, but with some kit bashing and paint, he'll make a pretty great Fomorian giant. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fill their dirty screw holes with my hot glue. All McDonald's toys have these conspicuous screws that you can cover with putty or 2-part epoxy. I find the easiest and fastest ways to just fill them in with hot glue, and that goes for the little hollows on their bodies as well. Now, this bolt in Manny's brain looks like he's been lobotomized by Red Sun Superman. I'm also going to use my hot glue on Manny to give him some bags under his eyes, which will make him seem less cartoony and make his eyes smaller. I'll also cut off his pompadour and trim it down and flip it for the same reason. All 3 of these toys are going to get a little Dremel tool treatment as I use my engraving attachment to chew off buttons, switches, and Made in China labels. And if that means we've created some more holes, well, we go back and we fill them with hot glue also. I've got the stamina to drill and fill holes with hot glue all night long. Now, I want to restore the lost wings to this dragon's nubs, but instead of having Morgan Freeman and a pack of spunky kids design them, I'll just chop them off one of these Halloween novelty bats. These are a great source for wings, and they're dirt cheap after the holiday. To make sure these bat wings stay on the dragon, I'm going to build a pinning for them. I drill them out, and then I take a paper clip, just sort of bend it in the middle, stick that in the hole, and then that goes into holes on the dragon as well, and then I glue that whole thing together. I also want to give Trolley a weapon, which means drilling a hole in his hand, which might make him a little less grumpy later on. His sword and armor are coming out of this Knight and Castle dollar store toy, just $1.29 for all kinds of goodies. A mace, a sword, a little castle, a little man with a helmet. As always with these plastic toys, I drill a hole in the feet and then screw them down to a can lid that I've removed with a safety can opener. Do not use a can lid that you've cut with a standard can opener or you'll slice yourself up. I then cover the lid with PVA glue and craft sand. Here the 3 are assembled and ready for priming. Flat gray for everyone but our dragon, who's getting flat garnet. Basing him with one of the major colors of his undercoat should be a big time saver. And here's what the 3 of them look like after they've been primed. I begin the painting by doing a poor man's zenithal priming, by filling in the darker shadow areas with darker colors and some of the lighter highlights with lighter colors, all sort of in a grayscale. On our troll friend, I paint the parts of him that will be metal, his sword and his armor, with black to sort of act as an undercoat for the metal that'll go on later. The top of his head is very flat and smooth and lacking in detail, so I decide to add a little plastic novelty Halloween spider to the top of it just to break that up. I apply the undercoat shading very fast and very wet. I make it a real thin paint and just sort of slap it on with as big a brush as possible. This is all going to get covered up anyway. It's going to just be sort of an undershadow, so don't worry about it. If I have to go back and put a second coat on, Just do it very quickly, just like I did the first time. I use a cheap makeup brush to dry brush some orange onto our dragon. This should make his scale stand out quite a bit. He has a little bit of a texture, but you really can't see it in the paint. It works okay. His texture is very subtle, and the orange doesn't really go where I think it will, but overall the effect is the same. I then begin to pick out his spine and teeth with yellow and white. Also the claws on the back of his feet, the ends of his feet, and his wings. On our troll, I'm trying a new technique that I haven't practiced very much, but this is the perfect model to do it with. One, because he's all one texture all the way across. He's just sort of skin mostly. Two, because he's dirt cheap and there's a lot of surface area to try this on. I got this from Dana Wolf, although I've always used a little bit of glazing techniques unknowingly with water. This I'll be doing with medium. I've got a glossy paint medium, which is why he starts to shine after a while. But it turns out glossy is really the look I want for this miniature anyway. It makes him look sort of sweaty, and it makes the sort of blotchy color I'm doing seem more organic. Now with glazed medium painting, what you're doing is you're taking the medium and you're thinning out your paint into it. So you're adding more, the ratio of paint to medium is changing. It makes the paint more transparent. You see, I've sort of done the shading on him by putting a black wash underneath and sort of highlighting him. And now I get to keep all that shading that I've done and just sort of color it in like a coloring book. Once I've got his skin where I want it, it's pretty much a simple matter to pick out his toenails, his teeth, his hair, his eyes, all the other details, the bony protrusions on his back. And then just sort of fill them in with layering as I would on a normal miniature. Mostly white and then staining it with some kind of a wash on the teeth and the protrusions. And then black for his nails. On the troll's armor, I start off by dry brushing a little metal, and then I try to dry brush some rust effects. I kind of overdid it on the armor and a little bit too much on the sword. I'm going to go back and correct them a little bit, picking out some details here and there, adding some silver with the silver Sharpie to make it look a little more like metal. Overall, the effect is fine. I just sort of didn't get quite what I was going for at first and had to go back and fix it. I'm going to give our troll a blue beard, and I'm also going to dry brush on his fur that he's wearing on his butt. Our woolly mammoth is the simplest of these miniatures to paint. For him, I'm just going to do a series of dry brushing. After we've done the sort of different colored undercoating, we're just going to dry brush with various shades that get lighter as they go up on the mini. I'm going to put white on his tusks, and then I'm going to stipple on some brown and gray, and then go over that stippling with some white. I used the source image of elephant tusks to get this idea, and I think it looks pretty accurate. The eyes I'm going to keep as sort of lifeless, I shouldn't say lifeless, but simple and animalistic, so they're just sort of black and white, a little bit of shine, a little bit of white in the corners. I don't want there to be, I want to get rid of any kind of sentience that might be in the sculpt because it's a cartoon. One of the screw holes that we filled in with hot glue on the Mammoth doesn't look quite right. It looks kind of like a wound, so we're going to just lean into that and paint it that way. And I think it looks pretty good. And then for the base, because it's a Mammoth, I'm just going to dry brush a little white over the gray to simulate snow. For our dragon's base, I went with a green to contrast his red skin. I figured if I went with brown, it might look a little too much like what he looks like, and I wanted him to pop a little more. And the same logic went behind our troll's base, which is sort of a brownish to contrast his green skin. Using a hot glue gun, we're going to attach some scenic plants to our bases. Let's take these guys outside and hit them with a nice acrylic spray coating to protect the paint job we just put on them. And here they are completed. I'm throwing in a picture of our Mammoth right next to a dollar store elephant, if you're wondering how he scales up. He's quite a bit bigger and honestly quite a bit cooler looking. Overall, I think they turned out quite excellent. Which one of the three is your favorite? Leave a comment below. Guys, as always, I'd like you to hit that like and subscribe button if you enjoyed this video. You can support the channel by going to my GoFundMe campaign in the description below. Come check us out on Facebook if you'd like to see pictures of this project or projects from the past, or just to say, hey, what's up? And it looks like I've been sharing the wrong link to invite people onto our Discord server. Another place to say hi. There's a little community in there. Probably my fault it is so little. Again, wrong link. If you are subscribed, hit the bell so you can get new notifications of our new videos. I hope you come along for a ride, and I hope to see you again back here on Miniature Mashup.